Hey guys, it's Kevin again. This is going to be another movie for guys, continuing my reviews of the Muppet movie series. Now, you guys may be wondering, I should be reviewing to you guys the Muppet Christmas Carol. That should be the movie I am reviewing right now. But I'm actually going to hold off on that because the three Muppet Christmas movies I actually do want to review for Christmas this year. So wait till then I will get around to it. But in order for us to get into the next movie, we have to get into what happened before the Muppet Christmas Carol. Basically, after Muppets Take Manhattan, Jim Henson wanted to stay fully committed to Disney. He wanted to make more movies at Disney and, so he could do the Muppets and things like that. But then in 1990, he suffered a sudden, sudden death. He died at 50, which is really, really tragic that had to happen to him, especially because everyone else is still alive from that team. But basically, he was gone, and it only really made sense for, I believe it was his son, don't quote me if I'm wrong on that, Brian Henson, to take over. He took over on the films, and kind of took the series in a new direction, but they still tried to keep that Muppet legacy going. Basically, they made the Muppet Christmas Carol, which was a huge success, which gave them the idea to make this movie. And that movie is the 1996 adventure musical comedy Muppet Treasure Island. Now, Muppet Treasure Island, as you know, I did get this 2-pack. Muppet Treasure Island, this movie, I remember nothing about going into it. I remembered a few vague things, and that was really it. It was probably the one Muppet movie that I just forgot that I watched. I remember I watched it just out of curiosity, and I really didn't like it when I first watched it. And I wasn't looking forward to rewatching because I heard it doesn't get better on a rewatch. It's, really not as good as you remember it is. And after rewatching it, I have to say, Muppet Treasure Island is not in any way a bad film. It just doesn't work as a Muppet movie. There are so many problems with this movie, so many things that I have a problem with that I really shouldn't, and really sucks that the movie wasn't as good as it could have been. I'm going to get into that. So let's get to the plot of Muppet Treasure Island. It basically is the story of Treasure Island. We basically follow our main character, Jim Hawkins, who he is this young orphan. He lives in this place in England with Gonzo and Rizzo. They're his friends. And he hears this story from Billy Bones, who tells him his former captain, Captain Flint, who buried his treasure trove on a remote island and executed all of his crew, so only he would own the island's map, and basically, he stole all of it. And while this is happening, one of his fellow crewmate arrives, and he gives him the black spot, which if you don't know what the black spot is, that basically means death, and basically, Billy Bones dies. So Jim, Gonzo, and Rizzo, they then decide to follow this map that he gave them. They go to this voyage, basically, to find the treasure, and they're approached by they're approached by Lon John Silver, who kind of takes them under their wing, but they start to wonder if they really can trust this guy, and that basically is the plot of Muppet Treasure Island. You can tell this is not at all the plot of a Muppet movie. It is not at all that. It is very different than I think any other Muppet movie that there is. And there are so many just weird things about this movie. Let's first get into the acting with this movie, because the acting in this movie, there's a lot more humans than there are Muppets in this movie, and I'm going to get into that. That is actually my first complaint. It's Kevin Bishop as Jim Hawkins. Now, look, I understand we wanted to cast a human and things like that, but this just felt miscast. I mean, this guy, he's a good actor, but he's singing in like a falsetto voice. It's very distracting, and plus he's a human, and it just felt weird. I mean, having a human be the main lead of a Muppet movie, it just feels weird to me. They should never be the main lead. They should always be in the background. The Muppets is an exception. When we'll get to them, we get into that movie. We'll get into why I feel that's okay that it wasn't, that they had the humans, play a bigger role than they usually do. I'll get into why I think that's an okay thing that they did there. This, though, I felt was completely just miscasted. This guy is good, I will definitely admit that, but it just felt like they should have given this to a Muppet. They should have given it to Robin. Robin, I think, would have been the best choice for this, or any other Muppet. If, they're introducing Muppets in this movie, maybe get another Muppet. He's good for what he has, but he just felt very out of place to me, and felt like they should have casted a Muppet in there rather than, an actual human, which I just thought was very strange. However, the best thing about this film, shocker, is Tim Curry. I mean, are we shocked at this point that Tim Curry is amazing in this movie? Because he really is. He obviously owns this role. I mean, he's the villain. He owns every role that he has, and he's just great. He's what a great Muppet villain should be. He's over the top. He's ridiculous. You can't take him seriously really at all. He's also pretty damn menacing, I will say that, but he just owns the role so well. I mean, every scene he pulls off, he owns the role. He's very good in this role, and I think he, out of all of them, was very good, and he definitely did a very good job, and he was really, really good in the movie. And Tim Curry, I think, really is the saving grace of this movie. Because I have to say, the Muppets, while they're in this movie, really felt out of place. I mean, every Muppet in this movie, they just felt like they didn't need to be there. It feels like a completely different movie with the Muppets in there, especially Gonzo and Rizzo. There was this thing going on in the 90s, and I don't know what it was exactly. I did watch Muppet Classic Theater, by the way, which I'm not going to review to you guys because it's like an hour long. If you guys want to check that out, then do that. But basically, Gonzo and Rizzo seemed to be this trend where they wanted Gonzo and Rizzo to be like a bigger focus, and I can see that. They have a really good bond, but they feel so out of place in this movie. They don't feel like they belong in here at all, and it just felt like they were trying to recreate what they did with Muppet Christmas Carol, and it really doesn't work. And while I've said that I think the Muppets can really do anything, I just don't feel they go in this story. They don't go in this dark setting. It feels weird. It feels off. Something else I don't understand is why some of the Muppets are playing roles while the rest of them are just playing themselves. For example, Rizzo and Gonzo play themselves while Kermit plays Captain Abraham Smollett, who I will say was very funny in the movie. I thought he was really great. Who I couldn't stand, though, was Miss Piggy. Oh my god. I don't know what they did to her in this movie, but she was so annoying. And I don't know why, but she was annoying the shit out of me in this movie. Benjamina Gunn, such an annoying role. I mean, she basically is Abraham's ex-lover, who, they're going to connect and everything, because obviously it's Miss Piggy and Kermit, and it just seemed like they thought they had to do the Miss Piggy and Kermit storyline, when it doesn't work at all in this movie. It didn't work for me, and it was just very strange. And also, what the fuck is up with Fozzie Bear's storyline in this movie? What was that? Him having a talking hand? I mean, I don't know what that was. It was just weird, and it just felt very out of place, I have to say. The directing by Brian Henson as well, I think, is a huge problem here for me, because I really felt that he had two different films here. He, I think, collaborated with someone who wanted to tell a story of Treasure Island, but then they paired up with Brian Henson and said, hey, let's make it a Muppet movie. And it really doesn't work. It really feels like the Muppets are to the side, and that it was kind of like an afterthought to just add the Muppets into the movie. Because when the Muppets are in the movie, this movie feels completely different. I'm going to talk about that, but Brian Henson, I just felt, really didn't understand the tone of this movie. It keeps switching from really ridiculous to actually very serious and quite thrilling. I just felt he didn't know what he wanted this to be, and it really didn't work for me at all, I have to say. The screenplay is really all over the place. There are some moments that are funny, but they feel so awkward in this movie, because the thing is, when there are no Muppets in this movie is serious, it's kind of boring, and it just felt like the Muppets didn't need to be in here. There are so many things that they try to do. First of all, they try to do the whole breaking the fourth wall thing. They tried to do that in this movie. Doesn't work at all. I don't think it worked at all in this movie, because it doesn't work in this world. I'm sorry, but I don't think they really could have. It really didn't work for me. The Muppets can really do anything, but this is an example of really what they can't do. They can't just do this thrilling story for no reason. It didn't work. It felt weird, and there were times where they did want us to take it seriously, but then there were times where like, oh no, this is a joke. It's like, what is this? Is this a joke, or do you want me to take this seriously? Also, this humor is very much more aimed at kids. If you have a kid, or you are a kid, you probably enjoy this movie a lot more than if you're, say, 17 like me, because I really didn't find this film that funny. There were a couple things that made me chuckle, but other than that, I really felt they were going in a more kid direction. And also, there are so many pop culture references and like references to modern day things that are just so strange and out of place, and it doesn't really work at all in this movie. And the Muppets just feel very watered down. I mean, there are some things that are pretty funny. I will say it is fun to see Kermit be this captain that, supposedly freaks out, but it's Kermit, and I think that's really funny. Kermit, like the nicest thing ever, being a captain, I think is really funny to watch at times. But it just felt like a very different movie, and it doesn't really work for me at all. I was quite upset with the way this turned out, I have to say. And there are no cameos in this movie. There are some good cameos, like in the beginning, but there aren't cameos like there were in the first three movies. And I'd much rather see the Muppets in a modern day setting than I would in a classic story. It just felt like they were kind of running out of ideas to me. Like they had some ideas, but it just didn't work. And that's really what happened with the screenplay for me. The cinematography, I felt was the best by far of the Muppet movies. Like, you want the best thing I can say, this movie has amazing cinematography. The sets look incredible. The cinematography looks amazing. You feel like you're in that time period. You feel like you're watching this awesome action, like Pirates of the Caribbean movie, that sort of thing. And they did a really great job of that. It really fit the movie, even though the movie is very strange. I think it worked very well with the cinematography. The editing as well. The movie felt very long, and it wasn't long. It was only 99 minutes. It really did not it really did not go by that fast for me, guys. I was not that into this movie, I have to say. I wasn't really into the plot. I also found the movie very predictable. Once you meet Long John Silver, they make you think, oh, he's not the villain. You know he's the villain right away. You can just tell this guy's a villain. You can just tell. It's no secret. He's a villain. You can tell the second he shows up, and it just felt very predictable, and it doesn't work. And, the Muppet humor that we've come to love, their witty humor just does not work in this movie. The score by Hans Zimmer obviously is great. He did a great job scoring this movie. It's really awesome to watch. The songs, however, felt very out of place and weren't really all that memorable. I can see why the next movie I'm going to be reviewing, Muppets from Space, took out all the songs, because the songs really started to feel like they're running out of ideas. I mean, there are, I'd say, 3 great songs in this movie. The beginning to this movie is awesome. They have this fantastic song called Shiver My Timbers. It's very dark. It really sets the tone of the movie. Then there's an awesome villain song. Obviously, Tim Curry has an awesome villain song every time he plays a villain. He's awesome in this movie. And then there's a great love duet between Kermit and Miss Piggy. But other than that, all the other songs are just weird, and they don't work in this movie. This movie by far has the weirdest Muppet number I've ever seen, called Cabin Fever. If you ever wanted to see a Muppet performance when you feel high, just watch that. You literally feel like you're on drugs. It's ridiculous. And I understand the point of it was for it to get silly. But again, the breaking the fourth wall stuff does not work in this movie because it's not consistent. There's stuff that they try to do, but it just doesn't go as consistent. It doesn't work for me. The movie doesn't understand what consistency is. It keeps switching tones. It keeps trying to be other things. And it just felt very strange to me. The ending as well, I mean, this is probably the first Muppet movie that doesn't end with a musical number. It doesn't, and it's weird. I wanted to end with a musical number. I want a big finale. There isn't one. The big finale is Love Let Us Hear. If you want a love duet between the two of them, it just, and again, even when Benjamin comes in the plot, it feels like she came in way too late, and there were so many more things they could have done with this movie. And there were points where I just didn't feel like this should be a Muppet movie. It shouldn't have been. It should have been, I think Tim Curry was good enough as the villain. They want to do something silly like a Hook. Do a movie like Hook. Do something like that. That, I think, is definitely very interesting. And this just didn't work. The Muppets fell out of place. They don't work in this setting. And I'm sorry to say, guys, but I was definitely very disappointed by this movie. Muppet Treasure Island, I'm going to give it a 3.5 out of 5 or a B-. I was very disappointed by this movie. I wish it could have been better. It's not a bad movie by any means, but it's just not what the Muppets should be doing. And this was when the Muppets were starting to go into that period of running out of ideas and not really doing as well as they did before. And this is a very good example of that. And it just really doesn't work. Again, the ideas are there, they're interesting. I think that they've, something I do want to credit the movie for, and the movies down the line, is the creativity. They never lost the creative vision. They always tried to do something creative and always do something different. I applaud them for trying to do something different, because obviously they don't want to copy Jim Henson's style. They want to do something a bit different, and I think it's very good that they do that. But for this, it just was too different. It was too different. It was too action. It was too not Muppets, that it just didn't work for me. And that's why Muppet Treasure Island just really didn't work and just was kind of a mess of a film for me. But that's just my review of Muppet Treasure Island. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know if you guys saw this movie. You have seen it. Do you enjoy it? Did you feel it was out of place? I just felt like there was so much more they could have done with it, and it really didn't work at all. Did you feel like the Muppets were out of place in this movie? I've never thought I'd say that in a Muppet movie, especially when it's called Muppet Treasure Island. You expect there to be a lot of Muppets, and it really doesn't focus on them a ton. Jim and Lon John Silver really are the focuses of this movie, while the rest of the Muppets are kind of to the side, and that really sucks that they did that. But that's basically my review. Hope you all enjoyed it, and we'll see you guys in my next video, which will be probably for the season of You're the Worst. I've been binging season 1, so I can check out season 2 next week, and I will see you guys for my review of that. Okay, bye.